Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the TrainAid HQ. My name is Nick, and in today's video, we are looking at our assessing course, and we are looking at workplace assessment model answer 2. So the purpose of this video is to give you lots of help and guidance with the Carver assessing course, and we are going to be breaking down a model answer to see how you can structure your own assessment. And this hopefully should give you lots of help and advice on how to really construct your own assessment. But please do get in contact should you have any questions regarding your own assessments. So let's get straight into the video then. So this is Workplace Assessment Model Answer 2. And we start off with our front sheet here. So we have the candidate assessor details. This is you undertaking the qualification. So please write your name. You are the candidate assessor. So I've typed my name in there. And please write whether you have been on one of our classroom courses, the webinar course, or the online self-paced course. So please put the details in there. We also require your start date there. So please put that in whenever you started the course. Now, as we can see here, we are going to be looking at Workplace Assessment 2. Workplace assessments, as we know, is you are seeing the candidate within their day-to-day working role. This is usually in the presence of fellow colleagues, customers, and you're observing their skills, their day-to-day skills. Okay, more on that shortly. But for now, I've put my my learner's name in there. That's Connor Wickens. He is a qualified barber. He's a barbering manager of Bell Street Barbers in Reigate, Surrey. So please write in where your assessment will be taking place and also the assessment date as well. So very important we do that. And as we can see here, we've highlighted, we've circled the second workplace assessment. So this is number 2. And that is very, very clear, as we can see there. That is page 1. And we're moving on now to section 2. This is the initial assessment. As you can see here, we have the learner's name. This is the person that you are assessing. So Connor Wickens is written clearly there. So please do the same with the learner. When I say learner, that could be a colleague, it could be an apprentice, it could be a manager. So someone who you know, and the learner is the person experiencing their assessment. Of course, they could be fully qualified. They could be very well trained within their field, but everyone can receive an experience and assessment there. So just with the initial assessment page, we have a range of questions we would like for you to complete. This is all about the learner undertaking the assessment. So the first question is, how experienced is the learner undertaking the assessments? And the learner should have some knowledge or understanding of your own subject. The learner could be a current colleague, an ex-colleague, an apprentice, a manager, a friend, or family member, but they should have some knowledge or skills of the subject that you are conducting the assessment on. So as we can see here, Connor is a very experienced barber. He's a manager of Bell Street Barbers based in Reigate, Surrey. He's had over 10 years working as a professional barber at the company, and he has a range of barbering qualifications, such as the level 2 certificate in barbering. So he's a very experienced barber who is going to be undertaking the assessment today. The next question is to describe the environment that the assessment will take place in. Please include as many details as possible, such as the time, location, the venue, and also the conditions as well. As we can see here, the assessment will take place within Connor's workplace, Bell Street Barbers, based in Reigate, Surrey, and we have the date of the assessment and the time as well. Okay, so for a workplace assessment, this will be taking place within the candidate's day-to-day working role, the organization where they're working. So do include those details there. Okay, so the next step is to look at the criteria the qualification that the learner will be assessed for. So the criteria will be the level 2 technical certificate in barbering. This is a City and Guilds qualification. Okay, so we're going to be watching the barber Connor perform a beard trim on a candidate. So please do write in what criteria or standards that you will be using to make a judgment call when observing your learner as well. We'll explain that in a little bit more detail as we go on. Identify and explain any additional learning needs for the learner. So if a learner does require any reasonable adjustment, any extra time, perhaps a reader or a scribe, then do please feel free to make those reasonable adjustments. So if you know that your learner, perhaps your colleague, does require some extra support, then please do arrange for that. So in order for this assessment to go ahead, there's no reasonable adjustments required for Connor. And also there is no qualified assessor present for this assessment. So just put NA, and we have the learner declaration there. So I can confirm that I'm aware and happy for my work to be used as part of a portfolio of assessment for the TAQA Awards with TrainAid. And as we can see here, we have the learner name, which is Connor Wickens. We have the learner signature, and we also have the date as well. So please ask your learner to put their name in. We need a signature and a date as well to say that, yes, I'm happy to be a candidate for this assessment. Okay. Now we're moving on to section 3, which is the assessment plan. So the assessment plan is really breaking down the assessment. It's telling the reader about what is involved, and try to include as much detail as possible here. So as you can see, we have the date planned, so when the assessment will take place, how long the assessment is for. This assessment is for an hour. Okay, an assessment in my eyes can be anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes all the way up to 1 hour. I wouldn't say over an hour, so anywhere between 5 minutes to an hour. The location, so Bell Street Barbers, based in Reigate, Surrey. We have the planned activity, pre-assessment targets as well. So for the planned activity, I will observe Connor conducting a beard trim on a customer within his working role in Bell Street Barbers. Okay, and some of the things that I will be looking at here, I've just highlighted. So I will observe Connor greeting the client and conducting a client consultation. I will observe him perform a beard trim on the client. I will observe him gaining feedback from the client on customer satisfaction rates. And I will also see Connor charge the client for the service and provide the customer with a receipt as well. In terms of the standards, I will see Connor perform his working role against the level 2 technical certificate in barbering. So those are the standards which I'll show you shortly. Any pre-assessment targets? So I have asked Connor in advance to please read the criteria, which can obviously help him to gain an understanding of what I will be observing him on. So just to read those standards, and also to read the Bell Street Barbers customer service handbook as well in advance of the assessment taking place. So it's always good to give your learner some type of perhaps pre-reading or something that they can do to prepare themselves for the upcoming assessment as well. So please do perhaps include some targets that the learner can complete prior to this assessment. Okay, so we're just going to move on with this form. Workplace assessment methods. So what are the methods used? Well, we have an observation, questions to be asked after the assessment, and also a work product as well. So all workplace assessments must contain an observation, questions, and a work product, otherwise known as a product of work as well. So that's something that is produced by the learner carrying out the assessment. So I'll talk about work product a little bit more in this video. Any special requirements, any reasonable adjustments for Connor, such as extra time? No, nothing else is required here. And we also have a declaration here that once again, Connor is happy with the assessment plan for him to go ahead with the assessment. So we require his signature as the learner and the date, my signature as the candidate assessor undertaking the CAVA qualification, and also a date there as well. Now, section 4, we have to include the criteria or standards that you are using to make a judgment call on your learner. Okay, so please include 1 or 2 pages maximum of the type of standards or criteria you are using to observe your learner. Okay, you can include screenshots, photos if you wish on this document, or you can send it as an attachment, but aim to include a maximum of 1 to 2 pages of the standards specification or the criteria. Standards and criteria, as we know, can be found on perhaps an awarding body website. It could be within a company handbook or any company policies or procedures. We advise that the standards are numbered or lettered in order to map to your observation stage. And if you don't know of any standards or criteria, don't worry. You can perhaps create one as well. If you perhaps run your own company and if you want to create your own standards, then you can do so as well. For this observation, you could have a clipboard and pen, and you can obviously write out perhaps your observation notes onto the observation form, and you could have a hard copy of your standards, so it's easier to show mapping as well. But let me show you my standards and criteria here. It's 2 pages. As you can see, this is the front page. It's been taken from the City and Guilds website. As you can see here, we have the unit, cut facial hair to shape using basic techniques. We have a detailed explanation just about the unit. So Connor has achieved this qualification in the past, so I'm using this this standard and criteria in order to make a judgment call on his practice. So I'm just going to show you the next page as well. And this is really helpful because we have a range of criteria such as 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and this is going to help me as an assessor to make a judgment call on Connor's performance. So with your own standards and criteria, it might be worth numbering or putting a letter by each of your criteria, and this is going to really help you with the mapping elements. So as we can see here, unit 210 is cut facial hair to shape using basic techniques. We have learning outcome 1, prepare to shape facial hair. Criteria 1.1 is prepare working areas, taking into account health and safety requirements and environmental conditions. We have criteria 1.2, which looks at the consultation with the client. Criteria 1.3 is all to do with selecting the actual scissors, razors, and so forth. But it's quite a simple criteria, and that would be my advice, is to really keep it simple. Now, product 5 is the product of work section. So as we know, what we need to show for workplace assessments is a product of work, which is proof that the assessment has taken place. So a product of work or a work product is any evidence produced by the learner during the assessment. So typical work products, we have a list here, by the way. It could be a completed checklist by the learner. It could be a completed risk assessment by the learner. It could be a customer receipt produced by the learner, or a work sign-in sheet. It could be any pictures of items which the learner has constructed, such as an item that has been welded in a factory. Okay. Other products of work could be a session or lesson plan, okay, because that's going to support the assessments. It could be a completed client consultation form, or even a classroom register as well. So we have to think about producing a work product, or a product of work for this assessment. So in terms of Connor's case, we have a customer receipt. So that has been produced by Connor. That has been given to the customer, and that's hard evidence that the assessment has taken place. We also have an online customer booking form as well, and as we can see there, that has been produced by Connor. That is a proof of appointment that the assessment is taking place. So within this section, we would like for you to include any photos of a product of work. So this is either produced by the learner undertaking the assessment, or it's going to support them with their assessment as well, such as a lesson plan or session plan as well. So hopefully you can use any of these examples here and include perhaps a photo or two to show a product of work. Now we're just on to section 6, which is the observation assessment report. This is where you will observe your learner perform their task, okay, and you're going to observe them within their working role. So once again, please remember to map the learner's performance to the standards or criteria, okay, which I'll scroll up. So this is my standards and criteria. I'm going to be using this to make a judgment call on the candidate's performance, okay. So once again, you have to include the learner's name. You have to include your name as the candidate assessor, the date, location. The assessment methods used, as we know, is observation, work product, and Q&As, question and answer. Now, on to the Q&A section, sorry, the observation section. We have the observation report here and the evidence reference. That's where you need to map what you see against your standards and criteria. So once again, my advice is to use a clipboard and pen, okay, and you are going to write your notes. You're going to observe your learner. So I'm going to observe Connor perform a beard trim on a client. So as you can see, we have the observation assessment report section just on the left hand side here, and it has a running commentary on what you observe, okay. So for example, Connor checked his working area and organized all of his equipment in preparation for the client's appointment. Connor adhered to all health and safety requirements. And on the right hand side, we have the evidence reference. So that is 1.1. If I just go back to my standards, as you can see here, it's mapped criteria 1.1, preparing areas taking into account health and safety requirements and environmental conditions. So I'm making a judgment call there, okay. I'm mapping what I observe to the standards and criteria. So all you need to do for this section is to observe the learner performing their working role and make a judgment call on the standards or criteria that you're using, okay. And this shows mapping. Once again, the main thing is that you do see the learner carrying out their working role, and you can obviously map against the criteria. It's very, very simple to do. But the main thing is that you do observe the whole assessments, that you are objective, and of course you can obviously pad out your notes later when you perhaps type up your assessment there. As you can see, my observation report is 1 page. I'm observing the beard trim there. Just moving on to the next section. Section 7 is the Q&A section. This is post observation. The idea here is to plan 5 to 6 questions to be asked to the learner after the assessment observation. So you need to ask a minimum of 5 questions to the learner, and this is really just proving their knowledge of their working role. So once the once the customer has been dismissed, you will carry out these questions. So I have planned here 6 questions, and all of the questions have to be mapped once again to your criteria. So this is showing that the questions you ask are relevant to the assessment. So my advice is to keep your questions simple. Always plan your questions in advance of your assessments. Don't try and catch the learner out, and obviously do record their answer as well. So my first question is, who is responsible for the maintenance of the barbering equipment and the area? And for example, we have got a range of different answers there. So please do make sure that your learner is providing you with a response for you to write the answer there. Okay. Now, just moving on to section 8, we have the photographic evidence. We need for you to include 5 to 6 photos from the assessment. You don't need to include the face of the learner. You may wish to take photos of the assessment environment. So as you can see here, we've got 6 photos of the assessment taking place. This is a beard trim with the customer, and as you can see, we have the different stages of the assessment taking place from start to finish. And what we would like for you to do is we would like for you to please include the learner's name. We'd also like for you to include the assessment location, and also a description of the 5 or 6 photos. You can, of course, map your photos to the criteria once again, so it's nice and clear for the reader to see what the assessment is, what the photo is demonstrating, and also the criteria as well. We also need for you to sign and also date the photo page, along with a date there as well. Okay, so a signature from you and the learner undertaking the assessment, and the assessment date there. Okay. Now, after the questions, after the photographic evidence, of course, we have the post-assessment feedback stage. So this should be carried out in private, away from perhaps the busy assessment area. So please ensure that there's no noise. And this is where you're obviously going to tell the learner their results. So step 1 is the learner assessment feedback, the person you are assessing. So please ask the learner how they thought the assessment went. Okay. So this is completed by the learner, Connor. Okay. So I'm asking Connor, how did the assessment go for you today? Please tell me your thoughts on the assessment. So this is Connor really reflecting on how he found the assessment. So let's have a look at his feedback. The assessor, Nick, was very clear in explaining the purpose and duration of the assessment. Nick showed me the assessment criteria a week prior to the assessment taking place. This ensured I had plenty of time to revise and prepare for the assessment day. So this is really useful feedback for me, the candidate assessor. So I'm seeing whether or not he had enough time to prepare for the assessment. Was he comfortable within the assessment as well? So it's really giving me lots of information to take on board as the candidate assessor for my skills there. Now, step 2 is where I am going to give Connor his results. Okay, so I'm going to step in now, and I'm going to say whether or not he passed the assessment, and also going to talk about his strengths and any areas for development as well. So this is step 2, the candidate assessor feedback to the learner. Okay, so my advice here is let the learner know straight away whether or not it's a pass or a reassessment, and talk about perhaps the strengths and any areas for development as well. So I am just saying, very well done, Connor. This is a clear pass. This is a very well planned assessment. All of the assessment area was very well presented. You showed great customer service skills. You built a great rapport with the client. You listened to the client and their needs as well for the beard trim, and you've met all the criteria. So very well done. So I'm providing detailed written feedback as well as verbal feedback on the assessment. Once again, please do let the learner know if they're passed or if a reassessment does need to occur here. Okay, just moving on to the final section, section 10. This is the action plan and the assessment sign off as well. So it's very important for you as the candidate assessor to really provide perhaps a target for their future practice. Even if they've carried out an outstanding assessment, you can give them an aspirational target, perhaps attend perhaps a CPD course, to shadow another trainer or assessor, to read a staff handbook. So it's just something that they can do to improve upon. So in terms of my assessment target, I'm asking Connor perhaps to arrange perhaps a standardization team meeting to share best practice with a fellow team of barbers there. Okay, so could be, you know, any type of target for the learner to carry out in their future practice there. So it could be something small, such as reading an article or just reviewing the company standards and criteria. Lastly, we just would like for you to get the learner to sign and date the assessment form here, and you need to sign it as well as a candidate assessor. Okay, now this assessment has come full circle. This is Workplace Assessment Model Answer 2. Stay tuned. I'll be obviously completing the remaining workplace videos and assessment videos for vocational as well. Hopefully this has given you lots of ideas for your own assessments. If you have any questions about assessing, please do get in contact with the team. Once again, do like the video and subscribe to the channel to receive the latest news and alerts from the team. Once again, thank you very much for watching.